The twin moons of Violia hung low in the violet sky, casting a cold silver light across the imperial city. Towering spires and dark crystal walls reflected the moon's pale glow, and the air shimmered faintly with energy, the legacy of an empire ruled by beings older than time itself. Within the central palace, a chamber vast enough to hold 100 warriors echoed with silence. It was here that Mistress Zalith, the feared ruler of the alien empire, sat upon a throne carved from obsidian and light. Her long, flowing robes seemed to drink in the light, and her eyes glimmered like fragments of distant stars. No one dared speak without permission. Even the courtiers' whispers trembled against the walls. Zalith's reign was one of order and fear, yet even she felt the emptiness beneath her power. Her people, loyal but distant, offered obedience without understanding. She had everything, except the freedom to follow her own will, a freedom her ancestors had lost to an ancient curse that bound the line of rulers to duty above desire. Far beyond the palace gates, a human vessel drifted through space, unseen by the Empire's patrols. Inside, a lone explorer named Elias adjusted the controls with careful precision. Unlike most humans, he had ventured into the Empire's territory not for conquest but for discovery. He was small and fragile compared to the alien world, but his mind was sharp and his heart unyielding. Fate had drawn him here, though Elias did not know why. The moment his ship crossed the boundary of the Empire, sensors flickered with strange energy, and a force invisible yet heavy seemed to pull him forward. Before he could respond, his ship shuddered violently and alarms blared. The next instant, he was surrounded by a light that felt alive, and then he was no longer in his vessel. When Elias opened his eyes, he found himself standing in a chamber like none he had ever seen. Walls of dark crystal shimmered, and soft, alien light floated through the air. At the center, on a throne that seemed grown from shadow and stars, sat Zalith herself. Her gaze fell upon him immediately, sharp and unyielding. Elias felt his pulse quicken. Most humans would have knelt, trembling in fear. He wanted to, but something inside him whispered, "Do not bow to fear." Zalith observed him in silence. Her people, trained to obey and cower, were fascinated by his defiance. It was rare for a human to meet her gaze without breaking. "You are far from home, human," Zalith said, her voice low, smooth, and commanding. It carried weight that made the walls themselves seem to bend. "Why do you trespass in my empire?" "You are neither." "You are claimed," Zalith said. Her voice echoed through the room, yet there was no cruelty, only authority. "By the stars and by the line of my ancestors, I claim you as mine. You will stay at my side. You will fulfill my purpose." "I cannot belong to anyone." For hours, the two sat in silence. Elias tried to measure the power of this alien sovereign, tried to find a crack in her authority, but found none. He realized that to survive here, he would have to learn patience and courage beyond what he thought he possessed. Finally, Zalith spoke again, her voice soft, almost thoughtful. "Do you understand, human? To remain by my side is not a choice made lightly. The path ahead is not safe. You will face trials you cannot imagine. But if you endure, you will see a truth few of your kind ever witness." "I will stay," he said at last, though his voice was uncertain. Not because she demanded it, but because something in his heart recognized that he had a role to play, whether he fully understood it or not. Zalith inclined her head slightly, a gesture almost imperceptible but filled with meaning. "Then the stars have spoken. The prophecy begins." Symbols from the throne glowed brighter, reacting to Elias' presence. He felt energy flowing through him, powerful, overwhelming, alien, and yet strangely familiar, as if a part of him had always belonged here. "You are not merely claimed," Zalith said, her voice almost a whisper. "You are necessary. What I desire cannot be achieved without you." He did not yet understand what her desire was, only that it was monumental, impossible, and dangerous, and that he, a human, was expected to fulfill it. Outside the palace, the alien courtiers whispered among themselves. Few had ever seen a human in the presence of the Mistress, and even fewer had seen her eyes soften in recognition of another's courage. Zalith rose from her throne, tall and elegant, moving with a grace that seemed impossible for one so commanding. She approached Elias. "Do not mistake my command for cruelty," she said. "What is required of you is not obedience alone. It is understanding. It is strength. It is choice, though the choice is not yours to refuse." The room seemed to pulse with energy as if the walls themselves were alive, sensing the bond that had formed. He was no longer merely a visitor. He was a part of a story older than his understanding, one that stretched across stars and centuries. Yet fear and doubt lingered. He was human, fragile and mortal, and the forces he faced were ancient, vast, and merciless. Still, he could not turn away, not from the mystery, not from the loneliness he sensed in her, not from the silent plea that whispered across the distance between them. Zaelith returned to her throne but did not sit. Her eyes remained fixed on Elias. "Rest," she commanded softly. "The journey will begin soon. And when it does, you will see that nothing you believed certain is true." And as the symbols on the throne pulsed once more, Elias understood the truth he could not yet name. He was no longer free, and the stars had already written the path he must walk. Cliffhanger. The Mistress has chosen. None dared approach Elias without permission, but all eyes were drawn to the chamber of the Mistress. Elias awoke on a simple mat placed in the corner of the throne room. He had slept fitfully, haunted by dreams of strange lights and voices he did not understand. The air felt heavy with expectation, as if the walls themselves were aware of the destiny that had begun to unfold. Zaelith appeared before him as the moons climbed higher in the sky. She was not adorned in ceremonial robes today. Instead, her attire was practical, yet elegant, flowing like liquid shadow around her. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, regarded Elias with a weight that made him feel simultaneously small and essential. "You have questions," she said. Her voice was calm, measured, yet there was a subtle force behind it, the kind that bends will without coercion. Elias hesitated. I do. I don't understand why I was chosen. Why me?" "That is why you are necessary. That is why the stars have chosen you. Necessary, enduring, willing to face what cannot be seen. These are the traits that matter. My desire, the reason I claimed you, is not for control or companionship as your people imagine. It is something far older, far heavier. A force lingers in my empire, one that drains life and light from the world. It was set in motion centuries ago, long before I ruled. It is tied to me, and it will not be defeated by my strength alone." "What kind of force?" "And you believe I can stop it?" he asked quietly. "I do not ask you to stop it," Zaelith said. "I ask you to walk with me, to endure with me, to face the trials that no alien ruler could survive alone. You are necessary not because of your strength alone, but because of your human perspective, your courage to see beyond fear, your ability to act when reason and tradition demand inaction." He understood that leaving now was impossible, not only because she had claimed him, but because he sensed a deeper current, a path that the universe had begun to weave around him. I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. Zaelith stepped closer, the air between them shimmering faintly. "No one is ready. That is why choice is an illusion at first. You will learn, you will endure. And in doing so, you may discover what it truly means to be human, and what it means to be part of a destiny greater than yourself. Our path begins. Here all who serve beside me must confront what lies within themselves. The curse is more than a force. It is a mirror. It reflects your fears, your regrets, your deepest truths. To walk with me, you must first face what you hide." At first, he saw only himself, but soon, images of moments long past, choices he had made, and fears he had buried began to appear. He saw his failures, his doubts, the people he could not save. "It is overwhelming," he whispered. "Good," Zaelith said softly, her hand resting briefly on the edge of the pool. "It should be. Only by seeing the truth can you prepare for the trials to come. You must not flinch. You must endure what you see, or it will consume you before the journey begins." He realized that the reflection was not merely a test of fear, but a challenge to recognize strength within himself. "I can do this," he whispered to himself. "I have to do this. The choice to endure belongs to you. There is much to teach and much to endure." Courtiers debated, aliens observed, and distant planets turned in the black expanse of space. None could see what had begun in the chamber of reflection, the formation of a bond neither fully understood, yet bound by fate and prophecy. Morning came with a soft, violet light. Zaelith returned, her robes flowing like liquid shadow. Elias rose to meet her. Today he would take his first steps into the trials she promised. "Your endurance is not yet tested," Zaelith said, "but soon it will be. Today you will witness the reach of the curse and the power it seeks to control. You must understand what lies ahead before you can act." But as they moved, Elias noticed subtle distortions. The air shimmered, colors bent unnaturally, and shadows moved where no light should fall. "This is the outer edge of the curse's reach," Zaelith explained. "It reacts to life, to will, to resistance. Many who enter these zones never return. Humans rarely survive, but you may because you see the world differently." You do not assume inevitability. You do not fear the unknown. You endure. Finally, they reached a vast plaza where the city's energy seemed concentrated. The air quivered. From the ground rose a figure, dark and shifting, a creature of shadows and intent. Elias instinctively stepped back, but Zalith remained calm. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The curse manifests what it fears. You will face it, human, and you will endure. If you fail, it will not spare you, or me." He stood beside Zalith, ready to face what was coming, not because he was commanded, but because something deep within told him this was where he belonged. Cliffhanger. Your choice to stay begins now. The shadow moved with a terrible fluidity, twisting like smoke and solidifying into shapes that defied comprehension. Elias' heart raced, but he did not falter. He had faced danger before, yes, but never anything like this, a manifestation of a curse older than memory, alive and aware. Zalith stood beside him, calm and focused. Her hands glowed faintly with energy, tracing shapes in the air that seemed to cut through the darkness. The shadow recoiled slightly at her presence, as if sensing her power. Yet Elias noticed that even she struggled against it, her elegance and authority not enough to banish it outright. "This is the first test," Zalith said, her voice low but steady. "The curse feeds on fear. It will try to manipulate you, show you what you dread most. You must remain steadfast, you must endure." The shadow shifted again, forming into shapes that resembled people he knew, faces of loved ones, images of failure and regret. It whispered in voices familiar and false, taunting him, reminding him of his limits. "You will fail," it hissed. "You do not belong here, you are weak." His mind wanted to retreat, to flee into safety, but he felt Zalith's presence steadying him. She did not intervene directly, she did not need to, but the certainty of her gaze reminded him that he had a purpose. "You are not alone," Zalith said, her voice carrying like a calm tide against the storm. "Do not let it dictate your thoughts. The curse is strong, but your human heart is stronger. You endure because you choose to." Elias felt exhaustion weigh on him, his muscles trembling, his mind spinning with visions and whispers. Yet each time he faltered, Zalith's steady presence reminded him that endurance was not about perfection, it was about persistence. "You are learning," she said quietly. "Do not expect mastery yet. This is about survival, about understanding the nature of what we face. The curse adapts. It will try to turn you against yourself, against me, even against hope. Do not allow it." Its form wavered, then collapsed in on itself, leaving only darkness that slowly faded from the plaza. Elias sank to his knees, gasping for breath. His body was weak, but his spirit felt stronger than it had before. Zalith extended her hand. "You have survived your first trial," she said. "But this is only the beginning. There are layers to the curse, each more dangerous than the last. You must learn not only to endure, but to understand. Only then can you aid me in what must be done. Why choose a human for this? Why not someone from your own people? That is why you are necessary. That is why you were claimed." Zalith led him back into the city, through streets that were eerily silent. The curse lingered here, its energy palpable in the subtle distortions of light and shadow. Elias noticed that the buildings seemed to shimmer, as if reality itself were slightly out of balance. "You must understand," Zalith said, her voice low, "that the curse is not merely a force of destruction. It is a reflection of all that was denied, all that was feared, all that was hidden. It takes shape from desire, from regret, from the will to dominate. To confront it, you must see it clearly, not with fear, but with clarity." Yet he felt a strange certainty, that he had been chosen not because he would easily succeed, but because he could not be broken by fear alone. They reached a quiet plaza at the edge of the city, where strange crystalline formations jutted from the ground. Zalith paused, letting her gaze sweep over the area. "This place marks the boundary of the curse's deeper reach. Beyond this point, it will test your understanding, not only your courage." Despite her power, she too was bound by the curse, and the burden she carried was immense. For the first time, Elias saw not just a ruler, but a being alone with a weight few could comprehend. "Will it?" Elias hesitated. "Will it harm you? That is why I need you. Your human perspective is vital, your endurance essential. We face this together, though each trial is uniquely yours to overcome." He was a human, yes, but here in this strange, alien world, he mattered in ways he had never known. As they moved forward, the air thickened. Shapes flickered at the edge of perception, phantoms of memory, twisted forms that hinted at regrets and desires long buried. Elias' senses heightened. Every sound, every movement, every shimmer of light seemed imbued with meaning. "This is the first layer," Zalith said. You will see what the curse fears most in us, our doubts, our regrets, our attachments. It will use these against you. You must not falter. You must endure, human, and you must learn from what you see. The vision was vivid, painful, almost real. Elias froze, his heart aching with regret. Do not flee, Zalith commanded. You face it, you acknowledge it, you understand it, and only then can you move forward. Fear is its weapon, understanding is yours. But I can endure, I can learn. I will not be broken by fear or regret. You have faced the first test and survived. But there are deeper layers yet, and each will challenge a different part of your being, your courage, your wisdom, your empathy, your strength of will. Prepare yourself, human. The journey is only beginning. He was a human, small and fragile in the vastness of the cosmos, yet here he was, standing beside a being of unimaginable power, facing trials that transcended life itself. And somehow he felt ready. Cliffhanger. Its gaze fixed on Elias, and for the first time the human realized that the trials ahead would not only test his endurance, they would challenge the very essence of who he was. The city beyond the palace had grown quieter since the trials began. Shadows lingered at every corner, and the subtle distortions in the air reminded Elias that the curse's reach was vast and unrelenting. Yet each day, as he walked beside Zalith, he felt a growing understanding, not just of the curse, but of the alien ruler herself. Zalith moved with her usual elegance, but Elias noticed the small signs of strain. A hand that trembled slightly when she touched the crystalline panels of the city, a pause in her otherwise perfect posture, a sigh that she tried to hide from the world. He realized that her power, immense as it was, came at a cost: solitude, pressure, and the weight of centuries. Elias, she said as they reached the edge of the city, where the air shimmered with unsteady light. Today you will witness what the curse has taken from me and what it demands in return. He had grown accustomed to her calm authority, but he could feel the tension under her surface. There was more at stake than mere survival. Ahead, the plaza widened into a vast chamber of broken crystal towers. Energy pulsed from the ground, twisting shadows and colors into forms that were almost alive. The curse had claimed this space as its own, and it radiated a presence so strong that Elias felt his chest tighten. This was once a center of my people's power, Zalith said softly, her eyes tracing the ruins. Long ago it thrived with life and energy, but the curse consumed it. It grows by weakening hope, by breaking the will to act. It thrives on domination and fear. That is why it has followed us here. Strength alone cannot defeat the curse. To overcome it, one must lay down authority, question tradition, and act with clarity and compassion. These are things my kind seldom learn. You, human, may see what we cannot. As they stepped further into the plaza, the air thickened and a figure formed from shadows and light. It was taller, more defined than the ones before, radiating intelligence and cunning. It spoke without words, a pressure in the mind rather than a sound. You carry fear, the curse said, or Elias imagined it did. You carry doubt. You will break as all others have broken. Your strength is in your clarity, not in force alone. The curse can be endured if we do not allow it to consume our judgment. But this time he faced them directly. He acknowledged them, accepted them, and refused to let them dictate his actions. The shadow hesitated, twisting in ways that betrayed uncertainty. Elias felt a surge of strength. This was not physical power, but understanding, clarity born of endurance and reflection. Good, Zalith said. You are learning. The curse seeks to divide us, to turn ally against ally, ruler against subordinate. But it cannot break what is freely chosen and understood. That is why you are necessary, human. You carry the perspective my kind cannot. You carry the will to endure without domination. He was human, yes, small and mortal, yet here he was, standing beside a being of immense power, facing a force that had consumed generations. He realized that the bond forming between them was not merely one of command, but of trust and mutual reliance. As the shadow began to waver, Zalith lowered her hands and spoke softly. This is the lesson of endurance. But now comes the trial of understanding. The curse does not merely test strength or courage, it tests desire. You must see my purpose clearly, human, if you are to aid me. He had glimpsed her vulnerability, her loneliness, yet he could not imagine the depths of what she sought. She led him deeper into the ruins, past shattered towers and glowing pools of strange energy. I am bound, she said, by duty and by the curse. My people obey, but they do not understand. My authority is complete, yet it is incomplete. I cannot act as I truly wish. That is the heart of my desire, to act freely, to release the empire from the weight of fear and tradition, to see what might be if power is wielded with humility, not domination. He realized that her power was immense, yet the curse limited her more than any enemy could. "You need my help," Elias said quietly. "Not because I am strong, but because I see differently. I can help you think in ways your people cannot. But understand this, freedom comes with risk. To act outside tradition, to challenge a force as old as the empire itself, is to invite danger. You may be tested beyond endurance, you may face loss, yet the path must be walked." He and Zalith were bound together by necessity, but also by trust and understanding. The curse would test them both, but it could not break what had been freely chosen. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Energy rippled across the plaza, and shadowy figures began to emerge from every broken tower. This was the next trial, more numerous, more cunning, and more dangerous than the first. Elias felt a surge of adrenaline. He could not falter now. The lessons of endurance, of clarity, of trust in Zalith all guided him. He stood beside her, ready to face what came. The shadows advanced, twisting and writhing, each form a reflection of fear, desire, and regret. They sought to divide him, to challenge his understanding, to turn him against Zalith. But Elias remembered her words: "Strength lies in clarity. Courage lies in choice. Endurance lies in understanding." He focused on each shadow as it approached, acknowledging it, refusing to let it manipulate him. Step by step, he advanced, following Zalith through the ruins, their movements synchronized, their wills aligned. The trial lasted hours. The sun, or what passed for it under the alien sky, shifted, casting long shadows across the broken towers. Elias grew weary, but he did not stop. Zalith's presence, her guidance, and the bond forming between them gave him the strength to continue. Finally, the shadows began to dissolve. They recoiled, twisted, and vanished into the air. The plaza fell silent once more, leaving only the faint glow of crystalline ruins. Elias sank to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. Zalith approached, her expression unreadable. "You have endured the trial," she said. "You have seen the power of the curse and resisted its manipulation. But the greatest trial is yet to come. You must not only endure fear, you must understand desire. You must see my deepest purpose and act to fulfill it, human. Only then can the curse be truly confronted." Not because he was commanded, but because he had chosen to be here beside Zalith, walking a path that neither of them could complete alone. Cliffhanger. Its gaze fixed on him and Zalith, and Elias realized with a chill that the next trial would not only test endurance and understanding. It would challenge the very essence of their bond, and the truth of Zalith's deepest desire. The air trembled with energy as Elias and Zalith entered the heart of the ruined plaza. The shadows that had stalked them before were gone, replaced by a more profound presence, a force that pulsed with the weight of centuries, ancient and aware. This was the curse itself, the culmination of all trials, the final test of endurance, understanding, and purpose. Elias felt it first in his chest, a pressure that made each breath heavy, each heartbeat loud. It was not malevolent in a simple way. It was intelligence, awareness, a reflection of everything that had been suppressed, feared, or denied in the empire. It sought not merely to harm, but to dominate, to force them to bend to its will. Zalith moved forward with unwavering grace. Her hands glowed faintly, shaping energy that cut through the oppressive force. Yet even she did not strike at it directly. She did not command. She acted with precision, channeling her presence to protect, to guide, and to endure. "You must see it clearly, human," she said softly. "This is the culmination. Do not be afraid, do not flinch. Understand it, endure it, and act with purpose." He had endured trials of courage, insight, and clarity. Now he faced the core of the curse itself. It shimmered with impossible shapes, fragments of memories, hopes, failures, and desires, all twisted together. The force sought to overwhelm him, to make him doubt his own understanding. The first images that struck him were of Zalith herself, moments of solitude, of loneliness, of immense power restrained by invisible chains. Elias understood immediately. The curse thrived on her confinement, her inability to act freely, her own fears of responsibility. It had fed on her authority and her isolation, growing stronger each year. "You carry her burden," Zalith said, her voice quiet but firm. "You must not falter. To endure is not enough. You must see clearly and act to fulfill the purpose I cannot achieve alone." He reached out with his mind, his heart, and his will, focusing on the bond between him and Zalith, the lessons of endurance, the insights he had gained through fear, reflection, and understanding. The curse reacted, twisting violently, seeking to fracture him with visions of failure and loss. He did not retreat. He did not waver. He saw the images, acknowledged them, and let them pass, refusing to be manipulated. And slowly, as he focused on understanding rather than fear, he saw the heart of the curse, the longing it mirrored, the desire it reflected. Zalith's voice broke the silence, steadying him. Do you see it, human? This is not destruction. This is reflection. This is desire and fear intertwined. It will not relent until it is understood and confronted. They needed to acknowledge it, to act with intention, to fulfill the desire it represented, freedom through understanding and humility. He turned to Zalith. I understand, he said firmly. It is not about fighting. It is about choice, about clarity. Your desire is to free yourself and your people from fear, from tradition, from the weight of what has always been. We will release the empire, but it requires a bond, a choice freely made, and a purpose fully understood. Slowly, a stream of light and clarity flowed through him, touching the shadows, untangling the twisted forms, and revealing the truth beneath. The empire could be free if fear and domination were laid down, if power was tempered with understanding, and if choice was respected. The curse pulsed violently, resisting testing. Elias felt waves of doubt and exhaustion, but Zalith's presence anchored him. Together, they were a force stronger than the ancient power that sought to dominate. Not through domination, but through will, clarity, and trust. The shadows twisted, shrieked, and then dissolved. The air cleared. The plaza, once distorted, stabilized. Crystals glowed with calm, steady light. Elias collapsed to his knees, exhausted but victorious. Zalith approached, her hand extended to him. He took it, rising to his feet. The bond between them had deepened, not through command alone, but through shared endurance, understanding, and purpose. You have done more than endure, Zalith said, her voice quiet but filled with pride. You have understood, you have acted. You have fulfilled what the stars demanded, not through force, but through clarity and choice. The curse is broken, not destroyed, but understood. It will trouble the empire no more. The ruins around them shimmered, fragments of the curse dissolving into light that spread throughout the city. The once ruined towers now glowed faintly with stability. Life, energy, and hope returned to places that had been dark for centuries. Zalith turned to Elias, her expression softening further. My desire, my deepest desire, was never mere freedom or power. It was to see what might be achieved if fear and domination were laid down. To see if trust, clarity, and choice could overcome what centuries of power had failed to change. One who could see beyond fear, beyond tradition, and beyond limitation. You chose me for that, he said quietly. Not because I am strong, but because I could see clearly, because I endured, because I chose to stand with you. And that is why you were claimed, not to serve but to walk beside me, to act with understanding and choice. And the bond between human and alien sovereign had transformed into something deeper than command, a partnership forged through endurance, understanding, and trust. You may return to your people, Zalith said softly. The empire is free. The curse no longer binds me or this land. You have fulfilled your part. He could leave, return to the stars he had traveled alone for so long, or he could stay, walking a path that had become his own by choice. He began, unsure. The pull of the human world of home called to him. Yet here, in the presence of Zalith, he felt a belonging he had never known. He had been claimed, yes, but now he was free to choose. Zalith studied him, waiting, patient, her own power and authority laid down. She did not command, she only offered. Finally, Elias made his choice. I will stay, he said, not because he was commanded, but because he wished to. Not as a servant, but as a partner. To walk this path beside you, to see what we can achieve together. Crystals glowed, the air was clear, and the energy of the empire flowed once more, free from the weight of fear and domination. Elias looked out over the city, then at Zalith. He felt the truth of her desire, the enormity of what had been achieved, and the bond that had formed between them. They were not master and servant, nor ruler and subject. They were two beings walking a path of trust, endurance, and choice, shaping the future together. As the twin moons rose high in the sky, their silver light bathed the city, the plaza, and the two figures standing at its center. The empire was free. The curse was gone. And a human and an alien sovereign had changed the course of history, not through force, but through understanding, endurance, and the courage to act. Elias realized in that quiet moment that the strongest bonds were not those imposed by command, but those freely chosen. And for the first time, he understood what it meant to be both human and extraordinary. The stars above shone brightly, as if acknowledging the choice that had been made. The prophecy had been fulfilled, not through fear, not through domination, but through courage, insight, and the quiet power of the human heart. Final hook. And though the path ahead was uncertain, one truth remained clear. Together they could endure anything, for choice and trust were stronger than any curse.